Good afternoon and welcome. This is Kim Johnson, Director of the California Department of Social Services, and we're so glad to have so many of you joining us on our kickoff call to provide an overview of the Early Childhood Development Act of 2020 that provided statutory requirements for the child care transition from the Department of Education to the Department of Social Services. We'll also explicitly speak to opportunities that all of you will have to engage in this transition process along the way. And we'll also speak a bit to some of the opportunities we believe are most ripe for opportunity for connection in policy in early childhood with the move to social services. So we're so glad to have you here this afternoon. As many of you know, and as a longtime early childhood advocate myself, it is an absolute honor and privilege to be in this role appointed by Governor Newsom, who is truly a champion in this space, and this administration has certainly demonstrated that through the additions of our Surgeon General, Dr. Burke Harris, through focused positions in early childhood within the administration, as is Giannina Perez's position. So I'd actually like to welcome Giannina to the call and offer her a moment to say a few words to the group.
Thank you, Kim. I just have to shout back at Kim and her team. It is truly an honor to be able to partner with Kim and see all that she and her team have done to do such a quick, rapid response and make sure that the pandemic is not doing as much harm as it would have done without Kim's leadership on our most vulnerable communities. I also am proud of the fact that DSS has been a leader as the state does more and more to answer the call of how the state is addressing racial and economic injustices. So we are pleased and grateful that folks want to come together and quickly, so quickly after the budget's passage, talk about how do we do this transition in a way that meets the vision and goals that the administration has for it. And specifically, what are those? What is that vision? What are those goals? Well, for us, uniting state subsidized childcare gives us a much better shot at integrating our childcare programs with other child and family focused programs that DSS operates, but as well as all the various programs that are at HHS serving kids and families. We also think that this transition means that we are going to be able to better support our child care providers and our programs. And I will also say that we are deeply committed to maintaining our partnership and strengthening our partnership with the Department of Education. Sarah Neville Morgan and Steve and the rest of the Early Learning and Care Division team at CDE have been wonderful partners, and we are committed to making sure that we keep those connections going with preschool, TK, and K-12. So with that, thank you. I look forward to this, like Kim was saying, the kickoff conversation and many more conversations so that we can all work together to shape this new division into what we want to see for our kids and families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giannina, and glad that you can be here. I also want to, on behalf of another champion of California's children and families, our Secretary, Dr. Mark Galley, who many of you have seen a lot of, if you're watching and turning into the noontime releases, et cetera, who's also a pediatrician and cares so deeply about families across our state. So on his behalf, and also on his team, Chris Perry's behalf, who's been able to join us, we just all, as an administration, really want to echo our appreciation for our ability to build on such a wonderful foundation and all of the partnership and work that all of you have done across the state. I want to say a little bit about, high level, about what this call is going to be. There'll be some more instruction later on in the call about how we'll engage in Q&A later on the call, but we are really going to focus in on the transition of the move of programs from the Department of Education and Social Services. We won't be speaking specifically to other budget or policy issues on this call. You're always welcome to reach out to us on those that are coming up, and certainly we can follow up. But we will focus on the transition in this call. I just want to also really echo what Giannina mentioned around our continued commitment to ensure that the early childhood system has a strong connection to the K-12, obviously with state preschool, transitional kindergarten. All of the other programs are critical, and that is an absolute commitment you have from us moving forward. And I also want to say, from the Department of Social Services perspective, we very much embrace the dual goals of the early childhood system, which is both providing child care as a work support for our families, but also for a enriching child development experience for our children. And so we care about quality. We absolutely will be embracing, again, a lot of the work that I know all of you have done on a number of efforts. And we also are very focused on providing a comprehensive consumer education experience for all families, recognizing the variety and benefits of the variety of options that families have to choose from. So those are all commitments from us. I will also say that the Department of Social Services, as I've been in this role for about a year now, we have a few priorities that you'll see reflected in this transition that we'll be lifting up. In November of last year, we established an Office of Equity. And so as we are absolutely through the pandemic, the public health emergency we're all experiencing together, through the social unrest and experiences we're seeing together, we are absolutely committed to a focus on equity, and specifically been doing quite a bit of work on racial equity in our work. And you can absolutely anticipate that will be part of our conversations going forward. We have also created a Chief Data Strategist position, and these pieces go hand in hand so that we're utilizing and have the ability to look at data through an equity lens and really identify who we are serving, what those outcomes are for those we're serving, who we aren't and why, and really bringing, again, making those inequities visible so that we're very intentional about the strategies that we deploy to address inequities across our system. Also within our Office of Equity, a lot of focus on language access, and that'll be a huge piece of our work in looking at how individuals are accessing resources and having everything available in the appropriate language. And also, I would say a huge emphasis on community engagement. We really want to hear from you. You'll have a number of different opportunities to engage with us specific to the transition, but on an ongoing basis, to really make sure everything that we're doing reflects community engagement and the experience, the lived experience of those that we have the privilege and honor to serve. I also will point out that we recognize and kind of want to say right at the top that there's real resource and connection to service here, and we are committed to a seamless transition without disruption of those services. So in terms of ensuring that contracts are being able to be deployed and on time with the passage of the next budget, in terms of really making sure that the subsidies, in the database systems and all those things are running, those are all commitments. And we have already begun our work directly with the Department of Education on engaging on some of these transition points. So that's an ongoing piece of our work to make sure that everything is seamless. You'll have an opportunity in our stakeholder engagement to say specifically, we actually encourage you to do this, you're welcome to do this in the chat. There'll be a survey opportunity as well, but where you want a specific focused conversation on a certain point, we want to hear from you on what topics you'd like to cover. We anticipate contracts will be one of those areas as well. So I will, again, there'll be a lot more conversation on some of the policy opportunities we're thrilled and excited about as part of this transition, some of the ways we want to see enrollment into the array of safety net services that we here are administering at the Department of Social Services with partnership with our counties and others. We want to focus on ways that we can really streamline eligibility processes. We want to see how we are keeping people on the programs, and again, how we're connecting them to the full array of the safety net that's available to them. As you can imagine, and as some of you are experiencing, we are seeing really high increases in our CalWorks program and our CalFresh program, and connection to other housing supports, and absolutely, as the safety net is designed to do, want to make sure, again, then we are making all of those resources available in a comprehensive array to families. So again, I really appreciate you being with us. I really look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I will turn it over to our Chief Deputy Director, Jen Troya.
Thank you, Kim. Can you do the next slide there? Thanks. Really appreciate all of you joining us and want to thank you for your partnership in this transition year and in the years ahead. We're so excited about the opportunities that we've been outlining to strengthen the early learning and childcare system in California through this transition. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do here in a brief PowerPoint, and then leave the bulk of our time for questions and comments so that we can interact with all of you. So the first thing we want to do is just reference the budget trailer bill that established this transition process. And you can see some of the language here. I think you will notice that in keeping with Kim and Giannina's comments, there's a real focus on an equitable, high quality, and affordable system, which is ultimately at the heart of our goals for this transition and for the system beyond. So we will be working this year on preparing for the transition, and the other parts of this trailer bill language that are not on the slide make it clear that the programs will actually be within the Department of Social Services, the ones that are transferring, on July 1st, 2021. So that gives us this transition year. With that, the next couple of slides outline the programs in particular that are coming over to the department. I will not take the time to read them all aloud, but allow you instead to look at them yourselves. And I think what you will notice, if you had not already caught that, is that the things that will remain at CDE include preschool and transitional kindergarten. And as Kim already mentioned, we of course have a firm commitment to ensuring that all of the programs that you see here on the slide, in addition to the programs that already reside here at the Department of Social Services, so stage 1 of CalWORKS Child Care, the licensing of child care settings, will remain closely connected to the education system, and that we will continue to work in very close partnership with CDE. So with that, we want to also make sure that you know ways that you can engage with us. We expect this to be an interactive year in the transition process. So today's meeting is an important kickoff, but we also will be having these large stakeholder conversations on a quarterly basis, and looking forward to these opportunities to interact. We will also have an ongoing email inbox. It is here on the slide, and you will also receive it, I think, in the follow-up communications. We will share it often with you, and we will respond to the messages that we are sent there and take the comments and questions. We'll let you know if we have more questions in response or need additional information, but we look forward to engaging with you that way. We will also be publishing our plans with respect to this transition, and expect to engage with all of you in response to those plans. We expect as well to have some more focused conversations that will be topically based, and we look forward to hearing from you about what you think some of those topics need to be. We already have some ideas as well, and those will be more in-depth opportunities to really talk through together the details of how we both ensure a seamless transition, and also that we are taking full advantage of opportunities to streamline or strengthen how the programs operate. So in addition to all of that, we're going to have a website that will be live soon that has an additional form that you can fill out to provide input, and perhaps where we will be posting ongoing information as things come up on a regular basis. And after this call, we will be sharing a survey with you. And we will very much look forward to receiving your input on that survey. So some of these are outlined on the next slide as well in just a quick timeline format to kind of reiterate. So the things that are called out here are key milestones, but of course I want to underscore, as I've already said, that we expect to have a close partnership with all of you and to have ongoing coordination and communication throughout this process. So right now, here we are in July 2020, and beginning the kickoff of these quarterly conversations. We will also this month be launching that website and the email inbox so that we have a regular comments process, and then providing our progress reports to the legislature and the ECPC. And then July 1, 2021, launching the new division here at CDFS, which will work in close partnership with the other divisions we have that have overlapping and critical priority areas where we think we can take full advantage of a whole child and whole family approach to the families that we work with and supporting our providers and contractors. So I think with that, we want to go ahead and open up to questions and comments. Christina is going to share some information with everyone. Christina Missa is our branch chief over the CalWorks branch here at the department, and she's going to share some information with all of you about how we can go ahead and proceed to those questions and answers.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jen. So yeah, we'll go ahead and open it up for the Q&A portion of our call today. So as you see on the slide here, we ask that if you'd like to vocalize your question, to please utilize the raise hand feature. So if you notice next to your audio buttons in the GoToWebinar application, you'll see a little hand. You can actually click the hand and that automatically notifies us that your hand is raised and you'd like to ask a question. In addition to the hand raise feature, we also invite folks to ask their questions in the question box. So you can drop down the little icon that says questions and type in your questions, and we'll be reading off of you as well. So while you all gather your thoughts and raise your hands, we'll give you just a few seconds to submit your question. Thank you.
And while you're doing that, I actually will just finish up with, again, the why social services as we head into this Q&A. And again, this is about integrating child development, educational preparation, family support, and work and economic mobility opportunities as components of each other. They're not exclusive. We absolutely, I want to say, build on a tremendous volume of work. I want to shout out all of you who have participated in the Assembly's Blue Ribbon Commission, who are participating in the ECPC, who participated on former Early Childhood Councils, the AB 104 work group. There's just a lot of planning and space for conversation around the systems that we absolutely intend to build on in this process. We also, of course, have experience, as many of you are essentially contractors of alternative payment programs. We want to look at even more alignment amongst the CalWorks child care stages, so the 12-month eligibility policy being the most recent example, right? Wanting to make sure that a family's experience across the stages is seamless. Again, want to also take advantage of the full array of programs that are administered under the Health and Human Services Agency umbrella. So how are we really connecting and tying to developmental services and early intervention? How are we connecting the healthcare and mental health needs and supports? Public health, which is a huge, obviously, critical component of our partnership, especially at this time. Again, with the food programs, how are we looking at the child care and food program also from a connection with nutrition education in our CalFresh program? And how are we looking at what the administrative requirements of that program, how they fit and dovetail into our licensing infrastructure? And I know a lot of people have done some work on also mapping Title 22 requirements with Title 5 requirements. So again, a lot of opportunity both within social services specifically, but also the broader array within Health and Human Services Agency that we are very excited to strengthen through this process. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Christina for questions.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So we have a couple of raised hands, so we'll go to those questions first. I'll go ahead and start with Deneen. Deneen, I'm going to unmute your line. Okay, so just as another reminder, if you'd like to verbalize your question, we do ask that you all type in your audio pin, so that way we can unmute your line. Okay, with that, I'm going to go into a couple of typed questions while we let folks type in their audio pins. So the first question we have is, how will you share with the public and stakeholders about the input you will be receiving?
So we will be posting the progress reports that are required quarterly. That'll be part of the web page and information that's incorporated there, and that will reflect also the comments and feedback we've received through our community input processes.
Perfect, thank you. The next question we've received is, could you share the email address again? So the email is cctransition
dss.ca.gov. Again, we'll make sure that all of those who have registered for this webinar receive the email address. We also have a slide at the end of our presentation that has the email address for folks to capture once more as well. The other question is, will this presentation be shared after the meeting? So yes, as part of follow-up to this meeting, in addition to the email address, as Kim had mentioned earlier, we'll also provide folks who are on the call with that survey that gathers some of that feedback and suggestions for future quarterly stakeholder calls, but we'll also include a PDF version of our presentation today. Okay.
Hi, I think I'm muted. So thank you so much. Nina Boothie with Every Child California. Kim and everybody, thank you so much for covering all of that information. I think it's really helpful to put all of this in context, and certainly really look forward to working with you all on a lot of these different pieces. Perhaps the question I'm going to ask is obviously something that we will need to talk about in the breakout groups, but it's really specifically around the fact that we now have some contracts that are staying under the Department of Education and some contracts that are moving over to the Department of Social Services, and specifically as it relates to center-based contracts. And again, I'm sure this isn't something we're going to answer right now, but just really want to bring it out that a major concern for center-based contractors is that they very frequently transfer funds between their CCTR and their CSPP, and just having the two separate departments in order to ensure that funds are being put out the door in the most flexible way to meet the communities, just that is a big issue that is going to be needing to be tackled, which again, you alluded to, but just wanted to raise that up because that is something that I'm hearing people are incredibly nervous about, and they're very cautious about, again, just wanting to ensure that there is ability to be able to transfer funds backwards and forwards. So again, just excited to be a part of the stakeholder process, and again, just wanted to elevate that because I would be remiss for my members if I did not do so. So thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Okay, okay, so moving on to the questions that are being typed in. So one of the questions that we have here, is there a possibility of program requirements and regulations changing as a result of the transition?
Thank you for the question. Looks like it came from Rosalinda. We do anticipate that we will be having conversations with all of you about policy opportunities that this transition presents. I think the ECPC is a good forum for those stakeholder conversations, and then some of these other conversations that we're having as well. We don't have specifics to present to you today on what we would propose, but we absolutely look forward to having those conversations with you throughout this year and then beyond.
Okay, so we have another question. Will contracts continue to come to folks from the state level, or will they come to folks through the county level? So this may be a logistical question, but
at this point, we're not anticipating that the contracts would be coming from the counties. They will come from the state and from the department.
Okay. So Luann, I'm going to try and unmute your line. You may have to unmute yourself as well. I think you're trying to name again. I think she's go ahead and try to. Oh, I see Deneen has called in. Okay, Deneen, your line is unmuted.
Okay, thanks everyone, and thanks for hosting this stakeholder conversation. So on behalf of APs, we're cautiously optimistic of engaging in this new terrain about focusing on the whole family and child, and about ways of looking to have families come through the door and better coordinating the full needs of the family and not just the child care. And additionally, I want to put a plug in for, as we transition over, a greater embracing of technology. We really, in some of the programs at DSS, the technology and recognizing electronic versus digital issues has really benefited programs, and we're looking to have that carried over for a lot of the child care. So just pleased to be a part of this and looking forward to a lot more opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay, so moving on from Denise, we do have another audience question from Jennifer Greppy. Can we use the CalWORK process for engaging families in the transition process, making sure customers have the opportunity to share their wisdom about systems and programs?
Jennifer, we want to tell you that we too felt that that was a successful process, and we're absolutely looking at it as a model for making sure that we have parent and provider engagement in this transition process as we move forward. So we look forward to sharing more information about that as it becomes available.
Okay, so we are going to move to Linda Sasso. I'm going to try and unmute your line. Okay, Linda, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you, and thank you for hosting the stakeholder meeting. You know, just like children and families' needs aren't separated, you know, into different boxes, or you know, or the whole child approach, I really, really appreciate, and I really look forward to this under the leadership of Kim and the department. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about your thinking about the whole child and the integration of the different services. And I also just want to applaud as well that just like racial inequalities is not separate from our services, I really want to just acknowledge and thank you for lifting that up and integrating that also in your plans and services. But if you could answer the question just a little bit more about your thinking about the whole child view.
Thank you, Linda. Yes. Critically important. I think when we're thinking about the whole child view, again, everything that we are working through within Secretary Ghali's leadership is about being client-centered and whole family. And that really means, again, a little bit of those examples that I was mentioning, both on how families are able to engage in array. So, for example, if you are going to sign up for Medi-Cal, how at that point in which you are enrolling and applying for Medi-Cal are you getting connected to the other programs, whether they be CalWORKs, whether they be a child care subsidy or early learning program, whether they be a CalFresh and others. So how are we really, again, I want to lift up the phenomenal work that our legislature and prior administrations and this administration have done to build one of the most, I say the most, robust array that we have across our country. And so how, as part of engaging, and certainly, again, the need we anticipate will continue to grow based on what we are experiencing right now with COVID. So how are families getting connected to that array? And I think, again, kind of shouting out the Early Childhood Policy Committee's parent advisory meeting that occurred yesterday, where many families were speaking to not knowing, right? And we've had a lot of conversation about this in our CalWORKs program with participants, not knowing the array that was available. So we really want to do a great job of integrating and demonstrating those resources so that at the point in time that the family is both eligible and wanting to engage, that we're connecting. But also it's how we're looking at, as I mentioned, our Surgeon General's leadership on trauma-informed approaches. How are we thinking about trauma-informed approaches on every component of our system? How is that being built into what the case management experience looks and feels like? Individuals and families sharing their stories, et cetera. So we are also, again, wanting to ensure that, as is, our programs, right, the silos that they live in, we're really trying to break those down and integrate them. So yes, for example, CalWORKs has a heavy component related to working and engaging in employment and activities to get education to get to that space. But again, how are we utilizing those conversations to also talk about the importance of early childhood development? Our home visiting program is another example of that, of strength-based family support approaches to holistically connecting with families. So that's a little bit more about what we're meaning in that space.
Kim, if I can build on that, I would just want to reference that one of the questions that we also received was about housing issues. It says, since housing issues related to poverty are very tied to all the programs you will oversee, do you have plans to connect with the Department of Housing and Community Development? So I just want to piggyback on what Kim was describing here about the integration of the entire array of services at DSS and across the state to say, within DSS, we also have a Housing and Homelessness Bureau within branch within the FEED division, and we oversee and operate several housing and homelessness related programs ourselves, as well as work in close partnership with HCD. So we do expect to benefit from that partnership also. Okay, so we are going to go back to the lines. We have a couple of other hands that are raised. So Sheila, I'm going to unmute your line if you can unmute yourself as well. Hey Sheila, chat one more time. Oh, sorry, I muted you after you unmuted yourself. Okay, Sheila, you're live.
Oh, I just I typed in the question, how does TrustLine fit into all of this?
Sure. So TrustLine, there won't be any immediate changes. In TrustLine, again, for maybe anyone who's not familiar, is our process by which there is a background check for individuals who are going to be a family friend or neighbor to care for a child receiving a subsidy and other programs as well. We actually have Shanice Oram on the line too from our licensing division. But again, don't anticipate any changes to TrustLine at this particular time as part of the process for non-relative caregivers to have that background check. Oh, okay, Kristen, I'm going to unmute your line. Okay, you are self-muted, so if you could unmute yourself, Kristen Hills. There you
Yes, hi. My name is Kristen Hills. I'm the Director of Early Learning and Care at Mendocino County Office of Education. And as we oversee, and I know many county offices do, the LPC and the quality programs, in addition to state preschool, my question is actually about rural counties in the far north. So I've noticed that many state level work groups, including the ECEP, are lacking in representation from our region. And I'm hoping that there's going to be a real effort to include folks from our region, because I do think that sometimes things play out a little differently for us locally. I really appreciate the opportunity to give feedback and ask questions, and thank you guys for that.
Thank you for your comment. Oh, okay, Luann, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. Hi, Luann. So I've unmuted your line. You're self-muted. If you can unmute yourself, you can ask your question. Okay. Okay, Luann, we'll come back to you once we get it. It could also be an audio pin issue. So if you click on the audio arrow, folks can see their audio pin and dial that in as well. Oh, okay, so we have Luann's question in the chat box, so we're going to go ahead and ask this question. How do you think about horizontal integration of access across systems and childcare in the framework to help families access all the other benefits and programs across the state? Might there be a technology fix here beyond this transition? Sure, I think we'll definitely be building on the work of the Verification Hub. Again, for those who might not be familiar, we started that work with CalWORKS and CalFresh, and the concept being that there are ways in which we can access data that we need to verify for purposes of eligibility without having the burden of asking participants to come in and provide that, whether that be a check stub or something related to DMV, et cetera. And so we want to look at opportunities, again, to think about childcare in that space as a way to support and those connections to those systems for integration and allowing individuals to both enroll but also maintain eligibility to programs. So that would be an example of that. Perfect. Okay, we have another question from Shannon Watkins. Shannon, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line.
Yes, I was wondering, you guys mentioned previously about there might be possibilities for change in policies in transitioning over, and I'm concerned about how that's going to work if you have a program where you operate both contracts in one room. So sometimes we have our CCTR being operated with our CSPP, but if we have two different sets of regulations to follow in the same classroom, how is that going to look?
Yeah, there's not an intention on changing immediately, again, to the earlier question related to regulations. That'll be part of a longer trajectory of change that we'd consider in terms of any improvements. And of course, that would be done through stakeholder engagement. So there wouldn't be an immediate issue with that. And of course, again, we will have some focused conversation, again, for those who are jointly state preschool and general child care contractors to make sure, again, the transition is seamless for those program administrators.
Okay. So another question we received from the chat box, are the programs being housed in their current location, or will they be moved to the DSS offices?
So again, this is similar to an earlier question, state to state. So the programs are moving from the State Department of Education to the State Department of Social Services. There's not an additional change at the local level.
Okay. So I just wanted to add to what Kim said. It is the case that, and this may be the next question also, is about will jobs be impacted due to the transition? We do expect that CDE staff will move to the Department of Social Services. So if that was part of the question, just wanted to add that clarification. Okay, thank you. So Mary Ignatius, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. You're self-muted, so if you can unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. You know, I think any transition creates anxiety and nerves, but I also think it creates a lot of opportunity that we're excited to work with you on. One of the questions I had, you mentioned, you know, the recent 12-month eligibility changes to the CalWORKS program that we fought for through SB 321. And one of the pieces of that was the sort of shared data screen that would allow, that was read-only, that would allow both the child care agency and the county welfare department to sort of share the 9 data elements and the last date of cash aid received. Do you have any update as to when, like, is anyone working on that, or is that something we can rise to the top as we talk about, you know, ensuring families are seamlessly going from program to program and things like that?
Hi, Mary. This is Jigna Shah over at Department of Social Services. And yes, we are working closely with Small Work Group and our SAWS group, the Statewide Automated Data Welfare System group, to create that shared screen so that our Stage 2 contractors do have access so that families can transition smoothly.
So another question that we received in the chat box, will counties have the flexibility to contract out the administration of Stage 1, Stage 2, and Stage 3 child care? So again, no change in the immediate future here. Stage 1, counties currently have the flexibility to contract out those services. And in Stage 2 and Stage 3, those are currently administered by alternative payment programs. So no change in that for the immediate future. Another question received, will there be any reorgs to align CCL with the direct service ECE programs in DSS?
It's a great question. Certainly, we absolutely believe that this transition provides for greater connectivity and integration. And so that's a question that we'll continue to look at, how structurally as an organization we are both incorporating the infrastructure of the new programs and positions, and how that then connects directly with the licensing infrastructure. Of course, there's a lot of opportunity in this space. I mentioned a couple of them with the food program, with, of course, how licensing is considered kind of the base foundation of health and safety within quality counts, but there's certainly others. And so no doubt there will be additional opportunities and possibilities that we'll be exploring with all of you on a very intentional connection points between licensing, quality efforts, and the programs.
Perfect.
Kim, I want to piggyback on what you just said about opportunities for integration. We, as many of you may know, also oversee the child welfare system, and there is a question here about child welfare moving to a prevention model rather than intervention, and any discussion of alignment with ECE. So certainly, yes, we anticipate that there will be a close partnership between these divisions, and that conversations about the benefits of early learning and care for child abuse prevention can be fully realized, and that children can be served well once they are in the child welfare system within this system as well. So really look forward to further integration and alignments there as well.
Okay, so Kristen, it looks like your hand is raised once more. I think we already answered your question, but we have another one from Lena Ward. So Lena, I just unmuted your line. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question. For Shannon Watkins, did we do Shannon? Hey, Lena, if you can unmute your line.
That's okay. My question has been answered. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lena. Okay. Okay, so another question we have from the audience: how will quality improvement programs be addressed? Will CDSS now submit the state plan required by CCDBG?
Yes, the Child Care and Development Fund and the Block Grant are part of the transition and move, and so social services will become the state lead agency for submission of that plan.
Perfect. And we have another question from Layla. I'm going to unmute your line. Okay, Layla, you are now unmuted. If you can unmute yourself to ask your question.
Sorry, I was asking the question when I was still muted. It's similar to the previous one. How will this all be integrated?
So operationally, the staff that are currently funded by the positions that are moving will be part of the transition for coming over to social services effective July 1 of 2021. And then, of course, anything that we're talking about that we've been teeing up here in the conversation related to policy, again, we're going to both utilize some space and create some space, focus on those conversations, but also utilize some of the conversations that are currently occurring through the Early Childhood Policy Council, the workforce committee of that group, as well as the parent advisory. There's also, of course, the master plan on early learning that is in play and process right now. There's a number of data processes in front as well. So we're absolutely going to be across the board taking the course of the next several months to really transition this all the way through, kind of sitting together in spaces so that, again, by July 1st, we are ready to ensure that all programs are continuing and that we are thinking through kind of the next phases of improvements to the system.
So another question we have from Deborah of Monterey County. Superficially, will stage 2 keep the same rules they have now, but will they shift to stage 1 rules?
So there are no immediate changes to the policy that are proposed right now, but we will, through this transition year and beyond, expect to have conversations with all of you about any potential changes in policy that we might want to consider.
Yeah, again, just want to echo how much we appreciate your voice. I mean, just surely by the number of participants interested in the topic, we recognize how interested and engaged this community is. Many of you know that I used to be on the other side of the world too, in the community, on the advocacy space. So please know, when it comes down to policy, we are about no surprises here, and we'll absolutely be engaging you as you would expect us to on those changes along the way. So if we're having any conversation that has an impact on policy, we will do that in a transparent way with you.
Perfect. Another audience question in the chat box: will CDSS be able to update mychildcare.ca.gov more quickly?
So we are in the process of working with the network and the Department of Ed. This is currently still under their purview here. So this is a joint process that we're looking at. This, again, is a consumer education tool for those who aren't familiar. And so it'll be part of our continued collaboration with the network, the local child care resource and referral agencies, licensing, et cetera, on how that particular platform's launched and available to families.
Okay, so I think this question was partially answered. Will programs transfer to CDSS and also be transferred down to counties to administer? For example, since county welfare directors administer stage 1, will they now administer the additional programs?
I think we'll repeat the answer that we gave earlier, that at this point there are no immediate changes to the current structure that are being proposed, and we will certainly be transparent with you as the process unfolds to obtain input, and then as any proposed changes come.
Okay, so another question from our chat box. What may be the potential impact of this transition on the current client databases that APPs are using, such as NoHo Care, MCC, et cetera?
Yeah, no immediate changes. I think the Department of Social Services has a tremendous amount of experience on multiple database systems. Fortunately, or unfortunately, however you want to see that. And so I think, again, we have a commitment to continue to think through how we are improving systems. Obviously, technology has had a lot of advancements in terms of using API tools that really have the ability to match into larger systems. So I think all of those things would be considered. We are currently transitioning all of the county, statewide automated welfare systems into one system. That's something that we're working on now for 2023. So again, lots of experience on having data on multiple platforms, and then thinking about how we then create an API to bring that information together. We are, again, very fortunate to have Natasha Nikolai as our Chief Data Strategist on our team, who has a tremendous amount of expertise in this space too. There's a lot of work that the Health and Human Services Agency has done related to looking at integration of data and data sharing agreements. And so all of that experience will be put to work here in this space to really maximizing the technological capabilities of those systems to get the best information we can.
So the next question we had from Angelica, can you share an organizational chart of how it works now and how you anticipate it being organized in 2021?
Sure, that's something that as we get a little further down the road, as we would be happy to share. I feel like we're not seeing hands raised. This is alphabetical.
Oh, we have one hand raised from Danielle Matthews. Danielle, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. Okay, you are unmuted, Danielle. If you can unmute yourself to ask your question. Oh, okay. Okay, so another question we received, in the period before the transition, will CDSS or CDE take the lead in providing guidance to counties?
Yeah, I would say one of the opportunities in COVID is that it certainly brings people together, and both departments have been working very closely together on a number of guidance documents in COVID. An example of that would be the guidance around the child care subsidies for essential workers and vulnerable populations, the guidance, and maybe Shanice, if you're available, I'll turn to you to say a little bit more about the guidance specific to preventative and infection control measures for child care in that partnership.
Hi, yes, this is Shanice Oram. I'm the Program Administrator for Child Care Licensing. I'm happy to be a part of this discussion. We are continuing with our ongoing collaboration with all of our state partners and local partners to offer the field clarity on the COVID guidance. And this clarity is currently being administered in a way where we are calling licensees and providing what we call technical assistance calls. So we have are just this week wrapped up calls to child care centers, and we are getting ready to release our staff to start making calls to family child care homes. And so this information is information that we have built ongoing throughout COVID with many meetings with all of our state partners and feedback from you all to make sure that we are releasing information that is not only in line with the public health guidance, but also is applicable to your settings. Thank you.
Thanks, Shanice. And so again, would say that there's so much happening right now that absolutely impacts multiple programs and partners. So we have absolutely been working closely with Department of Ed on a number of policy fronts. If you are a contractor of the Department of Education and have questions about your contract, and before July 1 of 2021, they should go to the Department of Education. So it really depends on the topic as to how you engage. You're always welcome to engage us, and we will get you connected to the right people who can help address your questions. But yes, the departments are working together on a number of fronts, and will continue to be throughout the course of the year.
Okay, and with that, we'll take one more question before we wrap up the call. What do others see as problems or challenges that should be fixed as part of the integration? And then, for example, there was an issue previously raised about provider payments, such as providers still being paid by check.
Thank you, Luann, for the question. It is a question that we absolutely share and welcome the answers to from all of you. I think it's a great opportunity to remind everyone that we have the email address, cctransition@dss.ca.gov, the survey that you will be receiving right after this webinar. We absolutely want to hear from all of you about the opportunities that you see for integration and streamlining and improving the success of our programs across the board. Yeah, and just as a reminder, thank you all for inputting your questions. We will be categorizing and cataloging all of the questions that were submitted on the call this afternoon. We'll use these questions to help us inform future stakeholder calls. And again, want to invite folks to complete the survey that will be a part of the package email that is sent out to all those who registered for the call this afternoon. So plenty of opportunities for us to gather your feedback and suggestions for future calls.
So with that, I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate your participation today. Well, we appreciated it yesterday, and we will appreciate it more tomorrow. It is absolutely critical that we are engaging with you. There'll be, again, multiple fronts as have been outlined today to do just that, and you are always welcome to engage with us. You can see on the slide there our next quarterly call, the formal next quarterly call is there for you. Again, in between there, we will use the feedback you are providing to us in the survey about specific topics that you want to focus in on calls, or having potentially even some affinity groups that might have specific questions that we can address as a topically based conversation. So all of that is to come. The next formal quarterly overarching update on our progress will happen on October 29th. With that, we thank you so much. We wish you well. Wash your hands, wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, and love on our babies. We thank you so much for everything you bring to us. Have a great afternoon.